It's true that Jesus says that the Good Shepherd is the one who lays down his life for his sheep, because back in the day, I'm not sure nowadays, but back in the day, that's what the Good Shepherd did. The bad shepherd would run away, as we heard in Jesus' words, but the Good Shepherd would lay down his life at the entrance of the pen, the sheep pen. So at night, when all the sheep would come into the sheep pen, and he'd get them all together, and then the shepherd would lay across the entrance of the gate. There were no gates, actually, so he'd become the gate. That's why Jesus says, I am the gate. But so the shepherd would lay down in the mud and the grass. He'd put his whole body across the entrance. So what would happen is if during the night one of those cheeky sheep wanted to get out of the pen, they'd have to jump over or kind of wake up the shepherd. If he was drowsy and sleeping, the shepherd would wake up and get his crook to get back the sheep and back into the pen. So it's true, Jesus says the Good Shepherd would do that. He would sacrifice his life. He would lay down, as we see him laying down in the grass in the cold night. That's how much he loved the sheep. And Jesus talks about this shepherd and sheep encounter as a very personal, intimate relationship, and they did. The shepherds did have intimate relationships. In fact, they often would cuddle their sheep, or they'd nurture their sheep if they were wounded. Or, each sheep seemed to have their own personality, their own characteristic. They called out Blackie or what, I don't know what the sheep's name was, but they called out sheep's names or a voice, and the sheep would, that went on YouTube, didn't it? The sheep would know the voice. That sounds good, doesn't it? Well, you know your sheep, and so the shepherd would know the sheep's voice. They'd come into that pen. So Jesus is telling us today that the shepherd lays down his life for his sheep. We might think about Holy Thursday. You remember on Holy Thursday we reenact the Last Supper, where Jesus takes off his outer garment, he lays it aside, and he stoops down to wash the apostles' feet. We reenact it every Holy Thursday. Some of you may have been at Holy Thursday. So we see that. But then he puts his clothes back on again and continues to give this instruction about loving and, laying down lives for each other. So what he's doing, actual fact, is it's an outward sign of what he will be doing the next day, Good Friday, where actually his clothes aren't taken gently aside, but they're ripped apart, aren't they? That's Good Friday. His clothing is stripped. He is literally laid down on the cross, lifted up high, but our faith tells us that that's not the end of the story. Over in Eastertide these days, we remember he's risen, so he takes up his life again. So what we're hearing in the gospel today is that laying down and taking it up again. Laying down his life and taking it up. We see in the Good Shepherd who lays down in the middle of the night, but he gets up again to start a day's work. Or Jesus, who laid down his clothing, but he picks it up again to give instruction. A Good Friday, he's laid down on the cross, and Good Sunday, Easter Sunday, he rises again to give life. So we see this Good Shepherd as one who does three things. You might note it in the reading. The first thing, it's all about love. The first thing, he has loving concern. Not like the bad shepherd. This Good Shepherd, Jesus, has loving concern for his sheep. He'll look after them, he'll lay down his life, he'll sacrifice. Loving concern. It's also a loving knowledge that Jesus says the sheep know the voice of the shepherd and the shepherd know the sheep. There's that intimate knowledge. And Jesus knows you and I very well. He has that intimate knowledge. He knows your difficulties. He knows your sacrifices. He knows the things that you do in your life. He's loving knowledge. And then Jesus, the last bit, talks about that loving choice. I choose to lay my life down. I choose to submit because I know that I'm loved by the Father. So since he has this understanding of the Father's love, he makes that loving choice to surrender. And all of this is for us. We know he's the Good Shepherd, laid down his life for us, to give us life eternally. And so on this Good Shepherd Sunday, we were talking all about giving our lives up and surrendering and picking up again. We can think about the states of life in the church. There are three, maybe four. The first one, of course, is married life. Most of you are married. And so in your own lives, we think about parents, of course, who have had to lay down their lives. You've had to lay down your own agenda. You've had to lay down your own desires. You have to lay down so many things for the sake of your children, bringing children to the world. In fact, you lay down your life for your spouse, in bringing the children to the world, don't you? In that beautiful way of intercourse. You could talk about that being a laying down of one's life. So marriage is a beautiful description of the Good Shepherd analogy who lays down his life. In order to raise it up again, we don't kind of stay laid down in submissiveness or surrender, but we see God working through our children mature, they develop, we see them, live life, live well, hopefully, and continue to work well. So there's a rising up again in parenthood, in family life. We think about religious life, those who have taken the call to be priests or nuns or brothers, like myself, Father Chris, Father Tony, the Deacon VJ, Father Josh, those of us who have laid down their lives in service to the people, for the church. You notice Father Chris wears a ring. He's not married, but he's just showing to us that he's dedicated to Christ. He's given over to Jesus. His love is for us, for me, for us, as a flock, as the shepherd is for his sheep. So we see that also, he's laying down his life in order to be living it up again. He sees that throughout his life. People conversion, people being baptised, performing the many sacraments, saying Mass, things like that. Then there's a single life. And this is a bit of a kind of a funny situation, because single life, it might be because you're in between. You're waiting for the right one to come along to get married, or it might be because of circumstances, because of situations in life, I can't get married. So I end up being single, but live chastely. And again, that's a laying down of life. It's laying, again, like the parents, laying down their agenda, laying down their will, being surrendered. So we see in all these states of life the Good Shepherd analogy as well, that in all of our lives we are laying down in loving concern, in loving knowledge and loving choice. So today in this Good Shepherd Sunday, Jesus comes to commune with us today, and let's pray that we might be brought to that deeper love, a loving concern for those we live with, a loving concern for those we work with, a loving knowledge of those we live with, a loving knowledge of those we work with in all our environment, and finding that loving choice, the choice to submit, the choice to surrender, the choice to let go down my ego, my pride, my agenda, in order for the Lord's love and grace to flourish in our life. So 3 ways, 3 states of life, 3 kinds of love, the shepherd who enables us to live this life to the fullest.